Hello, this is Mike from Retro and Vintage Watches and Restorations Facebook group. Welcome back to the fourth part of the Seiko 6309A assembly video. In this video we are rebuilding the calendar work side of the movement right up to putting the dial on and the hands to the finished product. So without further ado, let's get on and start with the build. Okay, so let's get on with the calendar side. As you can see, absolutely nothing is installed. So the very first part is this part, which is the cannon pinion. It's a small one, has a little gear on the bottom and a hole running through the top. This has to go dead centre on this here. If I turn it on an angle, you might be able to see it's a bit of a, it sticks up. There's a little technique I use on this. First of all, is to put it on the top, push it down lightly. That's still not completely on. Hopefully you might be able to see that there. Now, when you put it on, you'll hear a click. And the best way to do it is to put your tweezers either side and push down firmly, and you will hear the click, like so. That is the cannon pinion now installed. The next piece is the clutch. I like to do the keyless works now, and here is the clutch. Let me just pick that up again. We have a geared end and a plain end. The gear is going to go in here in this slot, and the gear is going to face inwards, like so. Now we'll just sit in there. Right, the next bit is quite fiddly. This is a very small piece. It's called the set-in lever axle. Sometimes this comes out complete with the set-in lever. This is the set-in lever, so it's in that hole. If you've got an old movement, sometimes they don't separate, but if they have separated, good in many respects. But this pin has to go in this hole, and normally as well this hole would have some oil into it all around the pin. I've already pre-oiled it. It's a steady hand for this part. There. Okay, that is in, and then we get the set-in lever. Set-in lever has two sides. Just try and turn this over for you. This side, with the one little notch here, I don't know if you'll be able to see that very well, is the bottom, and this is the top with the two prongs. And what we want to do is put the axle through that hole there, like so. And I just tend to move it a little bit out of the way, and there is a reason for that. Right, now we have what's called the yoke, which is the spring, if you like, that you can feel when you're pushing the crown in and pulling the crown out. There's a bit of resistance, and that is caused by this. This fits only one way, and it's going to go on this pin here. Now, what you hopefully can notice, this is the important bit, is that the clutch, the sort of gap it was in the clutch is in the middle, and the hook on the end of that is hooking on to the set-in lever, like so. Sorry, so you want to just replicate that, and then we need to put the load into the spring. So I just steady that and just clip that under there. It'll make sense when you're doing it, you'll see how it works. Now you just don't want to knock it. And then we have the setting lever spring, which is this part. And it is important that it goes on this way. Don't have it upside down, it won't fit like that. Has to be, I can't pick it up now, has to be that way. And this is you're going to line up get this into focus again, the big hole with this hole here. And then you find that the smaller hole goes on the same pin as the spring did. This is then held in with a screw. And then there's one final thing to do, which is to make the setting lever click over this little pin here. It's really important that that sits properly. Hopefully you can see that. Let's just zoom in. So there's a pin there, and I'll just push this ever so slightly over so that it clicked in place. Then if you take your crown and put your crown in, click, you should get the two settings that you would have on a crown. It shouldn't come out, as you can see. Turning it won't do anything because we haven't put any gears in there yet. And that is the keyless works installed. Okay, now that the keyless works are fitted, we now need to fit the date driving wheel, which is this nylon piece here. Make sure that this is all facing up. And we're going to just put it on top of that, and it just fits in like so. We're not going to put the next bit on to screw it, and there's a reason for that, as you'll see in just a moment. There's an order of how you would put the wheels on. So this is the minute wheel. Minute wheel will sit on there. We then need the hour wheel, and the hour wheel will sit on the top there. Try and make sure that it is engaged with the minute wheel. There we are. Hopefully you can just see that now it's engaged. And then we have the intermediate wheel, which is this little nylon wheel. It looks like 2 gears on one side and 1 on the other. So you need it to be facing upwards with the smaller gear facing downwards. And you would fit that on like so. And then the last part is the other part of the date driving wheel, which is the levers that actually move the day wheels and the date wheel. It has 2 sides. It has a recessed side, so the hole is recessed. That is the face you want to face up. There's an order of how this goes on as well, which is in the service manual. There's a picture, but I'll try my best to show you now by zooming in. So if you look at this, it has a notch just there, and you want to, I've just knocked the part, so you want to offer it up, place it like so, so the small bit that sticks out is this side of that notch, and then we just need to screw it in. It's just knocked my intermediate wheel there slightly. There we are. Okay, only a few more parts on this bit. So we now need what's called the setting lever complete, which is this part here, and we want it to go on facing this way with this hole over this pin here. And then there's another important bit. So if we rest that on into position, we then want to look at the setting lever here. The setting lever had a pin and another one just at the top. That needs to be engaged in that slot at the same time as being on its, in position, like so. And the last bit is then this, which is the minute wheel bridge. And that is going to be placed like so on that retaining hole. Excuse me. There. It's in position. So it's a retaining pin there that puts it all into position. And once again, that is held in by a screw in the middle. There we have most of the works. Now you can test certain action, like so. And again, it's going to keep nudging this out of position purely because the guard's not on, it holds it in place. You might hear this noise. Doesn't sound good, it's not good. But again, that's just because the guard isn't holding everything into place. The next part is the date jumper, which is this. And it needs to be this way. There's a pin for it to stick on, like so. And then you need to put it under tension. So you want to hold it and just push that under into the recess there on the case. This thing is liable to move again if we're not careful. So we can now offer up the date wheel. And I will just gently nudge or engage that spring like so, so that it's holding on the teeth of the ring, it's holding it in place. Then we need to get the cover, which will go on this way. Good way to look at this is this big hole is for where the jewel is. I tend to use that for my lining up in position. Again, there's a couple of little pins that just hold it into position. And if you remember on the first video, these screws are a lot smaller. So you want to do them one at a time, because losing one of these at this stage would be pretty upsetting. Just have to bear with me while I screw them all in. Okay, then we have one more guard, which is this one, and it goes on. You can just see there's a slight recess on the screw hole there. Bring in the movement, line it up, like so. Again, it's got two very small location pins. And the screw. Okay, if you've got this far, then again, congratulations. That's most of the tricky work now done. The guards are going to hold everything in place. And we can just test. As you can see, the date is going to go around. One click again for time. Of course, you're not going to see that, but you can see that all the wheels turn as they should. So, the last piece here is then going to be the day wheel, and we have to pay attention to the day wheel spring here, because the spring interacts with this star gear on the bottom. So I like to have it facing up where I know where it is. I place the gear on top. This is where an oiler comes in handy. So I'm going to hold the gear ever so slightly. See if I can zoom in and you can see. And I'm just going to move that spring enough for it to engage with the star. And then the final piece is the C-clip. Now, hopefully you can see this. Maximum zoom. It's got a recess around one side, and on the other face it hasn't. A bit out of shot there, aren't I? It hasn't there. You need it so that the recess is at the bottom, not the top. I have found many of these the other way around, and I think that's just through poor service. If you put them the other way around, they're really difficult to get off because you've got no leverage to get underneath. So again, what we're going to do with this, just going to gently drop it on the top, and like I did with the Canon Pinion, screwdriver, tweezers either side, push down, clicks, and that is it. If I zoom out, Click date. Works fine. Then what you could do, you already did it there, is wind it through 24 hours. It confused me for a moment there. You just wind it through until you see it change to make sure that it is working on. There we are. And that should move to Saturday. There we are. So once again, if you've got to this point, then you've done everything, or the hardest part is all done. And you should congratulate yourself and maybe pour yourself a nice drink in celebration. In the last part, we will put the dial back on and the hands, and I'll show you how to set the hands to the date and the day.